Speak on the show, episode 36, Saturday morning, y'all. Straight talk, no chaser. Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak on It. I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. How's everybody doing out there this morning? 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. That's what we do here every Saturday morning. Speak on the show. Brian Hoodie, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support from you and your significant other, your wife. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all for tuning in every Saturday morning. Let's get these formalities out the way. Straight talk, no chaser, baby. Let's go. rwcoolins.com is the website. You can go there. Also, RW Coolins all over all social media platforms. Go there, follow, share, do what you do with all the other things you may watch, things you may tune into, share to your friends, subscribe, YouTube channel. You know what we do. Coming near the end of the year, 2023 is around the corner. But we got some changes coming with the show, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. We're also broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook this morning. Also, you can download the audio after the show on Spreaker.com or Apple iTunes. I don't know what's wrong with my lighting this morning. Off here. Let's go. All right. 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is say what you mean what you say. Call in. We come in as friends, we leave as family. That's what we do here on the Speak on the Show every Saturday morning. We come in, we do what we do when we do what we do. Straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk, no chaser. That's what it is this weekend, and we just got some things we're going to touch on that I think everybody's got attention about, invested in, and talked about, and all the things we can think about. You know, all these things that are going on. Something's wrong with my headphones. I can't hear right. I don't know what's going on today. Got some technical difficulties going on, but we're going to work them out. So, Georgia. Every week, good morning, sis. Good morning. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Georgia. Y'all showed up and showed out. Raphael Warnock beat Herschel Walker in the Georgia runoff election this week, giving the Senate, the Democrats, 51-50 in the Senate. Until later this week, yesterday to be exact. Senator Sinema from Arizona decided she's going to go independent now. She's going to be a part of the Democratic Party. So now we're back to 50-50. But they usually slide the Democrats on the side of, the independents on the side of the Democrats. Still going to be that 50-50, however it's going to work. But let's get back to Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock for a minute. Oh, boy. Maurice Wigfall, what's up, my brother? Appreciate you tuning in. So Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker. Runoff was on Tuesday, was it? I think it was Tuesday. Do you know Raphael Warnock, the incumbent sitting senator, only beat Herschel Walker by less than 100,000 votes? Less than 100,000 votes. Is 1,816,000 to 1,719,000. Less than 100,000 votes. Now, I'm not going to get into all the different scenarios that probably went on, that could have went on, that did go on, or any of that kind of stuff. Not going to get into that this morning. Terrence Collins, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Get well, bro. Get well. But here's the thing. 100,000 votes is all that Raphael Warnock, who is the incumbent, beat Herschel Walker. Now, there's been a lot of discussion, and we talked about it last week in depth, about what Herschel Walker was called, whether he was qualified, and so on and so forth, and all those different things. But when the final numbers come out, you got to step back for a minute and analyze this as a whole. No matter what your opinions were or are about Herschel Walker, how he carries, how he presents, how he speaks, all those different things, he showed up. He just fell short. Now, I'm not defending. I mean, like I always say, I don't think he was qualified. But they put him up to run against Raphael Warnock, 100,000 votes, 100,000 people more than Herschel Walker got. So the question you had to ask yourself is, what are we voting on now? Is it a popularity contest? Is it straight Democratic Republican Party that we vote for because this is the way we feel, or this is what our agendas are, or we agree with their agendas and everything like that? Because if you listened, those 1,719,000 people who voted for Herschel Walker heard something per se. They heard something that caused them to go in there and vote for him in this runoff election, like they did in the primary and they did in the midterm election. So I had to ask this question to you guys out there, and y'all can chime in if you want. But my biggest question is, when we go to the polls nowadays, what are we actually voting for? Are we voting for our interests? Are we voting for a party? Are we voting for someone who, has this notoriety? What are we voting for? We got 2 years before we have another election. In these next 2 years, I would ask people to analyze what you've been doing and what you're going to do going forward. Because to me, and this is just my opinion, some of us, I'm going to say us, some of us are just going out and voting according to a party. Not what the party is representing, not what they're planning to do, not what they're planning to take away. They're just going out here to vote. And the thing is, we tell people, get out and vote, get out and vote, get out and vote. But we're not telling people, before you go vote, do your research. Find out who you're voting for. Get the information you need. Find out if these people have your best interests at hand, so on and so forth. You've heard me say this many times, and I'm going to continue saying it, because we can't wait until election season for these things to come up. Mark Chase, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. We can't wait until election time for us to sit back and say, oh, well, you know what? I really didn't get a chance to study. I didn't get a chance to look at everything. Let me just go ahead and click the buttons. Vote the same people in. Same people from the last election or the last 6 years or the last 4 years that they served, who haven't done anything to help anybody and has keep going against whatever and looking out for the best interests of those greasing their pockets rather than people as a whole. Just want to put that out there. We got 2 years, y'all. 2 years. And in these 2 years, there's going to be a lot of people that you're going to hear names thrown out about they're running, and this person may be the best person. This person may be the best person. Do not allow these political parties to tell you who's best for you. Do your research. Continue to stay vigilant and do your research. Georgia, everything in Georgia ain't good either. Excuse me. And I don't say that facetiously. I say that because of this next article I'm going to get into. Pastor Jamal Bryant. If you don't know who Pastor Jamal Bryant is, he's out of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church down in Georgia. He took over for Bishop Eddie Long after he passed away. But Pastor Jamal Bryant used to be a pastor up in Baltimore, Maryland. He had a lot of controversial things he said about homosexuality, different things like that, and women. Let's go there. Said a lot of controversial things, but he's in charge. He's the head pastor at New Missionary Baptist Church. And this week, he was on an interview. And during this interview with the Cool Sorrow podcast with Rashawn Ali, Pastor Jamal Bryant proposed that his church help Black males to work legally in the cannabis industry. And he went on to say that the church has a lot of land, and Georgia has some rules that Governor Kemp put in 2019 about THC and, THC oil, low THC oil registry and all these types. So Pastor Jamal Bryant wants the church, he wants the church to get into the cannabis business because they have all the land. And what he said was, because I don't want to misquote him. He told Ali that black churches need to get into the 21st century, and he believes launching a cannabis business will help drive membership in his church and entrepreneurship in the black community. And he said, I'm mindful that I'm not after Christians. I'm after people who don't go to church. Churches are just recycling people from other churches. I'm looking for people who smell like weed. Let me say that one more time. This is a pastor now. I'm looking for people who smell like weed, is what he said. So my question is, and the more I read this, I understand the concept, but here's where I think a lot of people had this problem, because as we all know, and I don't want to talk about the church too much because I don't know about the church in that aspect or whatever, but what we've known to become is churches have become a business. Churches have become a business. They're non-taxed and everything. I'm not going down that rabbit hole as far as what I do know and don't know. All I'm telling you is that church is a business. So is this out of pocket? Is it a good move? Is he going to be able to bring these young men who like cannabis, to teach them how to grow cannabis, to teach them the entrepreneurship of a business of growing cannabis and selling cannabis for the THC and all this? Is this feasible to have under the realm of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, Missionary Church, or under any church? Is this feasible? I'm a little torn on it. But this is what he said also. He said, I want people who smell like smoke, because I believe these are the people God is looking for. And too many of us have become so puffed up in our self-appointed sanctification that we fail to do outreach. In no uncertain terms, is cannabis, hemp a ploy or distraction from winning souls to Christ? He also said the call is not to bring people to smoke at church. The call is to bring people to church so they can catch on fire. It is my intention that if we can show young people the advantages and impact of urban farming, it will make a distinct difference. He also said, I believe the responsibility of the church is transformation, that the young men who used to poison our communities now help heal them. And I believe that hemp is one of the ways we can do it. He said he knows that his idea was not conventional, but that he serves an unconventional God. And if this idea doesn't work, he would try something else. Now, I think the biggest sticking point for a lot of people is going to be the fact of cannabis. Let's just be honest. I don't think anybody has a problem with the church starting a business or trying to teach people entrepreneurship or anything like that. But I think the sticking point for most people is going to be the cannabis aspect of the business. Let's just be honest. But he said he's got the land to grow. Just got to get the permits and all this stuff. But he's trying to bring souls to the church through the weed. He wants people to smell like weed, smell like smoke and everything like that. Now he made he's an unconventional type pastor. Let's just be real. If anybody's ever listened to Pastor Jamal Bryant, he's unconventional. Now, a lot of people have criticisms with this, but my take on this is this. If it's going to bring people to the church, and the main focus is bringing people to the church more than it is about the cannabis business, and they go hand in hand and they can work it that way, I don't see no harm, no foul. But if you're passing out weed on Communion Sunday and carrying it on like that, then that's a different conversation we got to have on a different day. But these are things that society, times have changed. You would never hear a pastor back in the day, during our younger days, say anything about having cannabis around the church or bringing people to the church. Let's just be honest. It's not going to happen. It wouldn't happen. Wouldn't happen. So let's talk about what everybody knows they want to hear me talk about today. Two things. First, we're going to start with Brittney Griner. She's home. Bless Brittney Griner, excuse me. She's home. She's been released from Russia. She was sentenced to 9 years, but she's been released. But the swap is what has everybody in an uproar. Because what they did was they swapped Brittney Griner for Victor Bout. Victor Bout, a convicted arms dealer nicknamed the Merchant of Death. And that was a swap, a 1-for-1. A lot of people are in an uproar because this guy was an arms dealer. He killed people. He threatened to kill Americans and all this kind of stuff. And I'm a little torn on not the fact that the release was done, not the fact of the one for one swap or anything like that, because we know there's other people being held in Russia right now, specifically Paul Whelan, who was the one they always talk about, they brought up, and they felt he should have been part of this deal. But if Russia's not willing to make the deal for two, you got to go for one. Joe Biden said it specifically. But my uproar, my swaying in this is not the fact that Brittany Griner is just a WNBA player. She's a human being. Let's just start there. She fills four different categories, per se, in the eyes of some people. African-American woman, athlete, LGBTQ community. There was one more, and I just went blank, y'all. I had it all in my, I had it in my mind. I had it in my mind. It just went. But here's the thing: celebrity is what they said, something to that extent. But I guess my biggest thing is when do we look at people in the eyes of being human beings rather than being symbols of what they represent? This was a person that was convicted for 9 years for a small amount of cannabis or a vape pen. Then we have Jamal Bryant talking about opening a cannabis farm on the property of a church. But I digress. I'm sorry. But we think about these things and we look at it and everybody says, well, she shouldn't have had it. She shouldn't have been taking it over there. She said it was an honest mistake. We don't know until we get the interview from her exactly say what happened. We can all draw conclusions from that. But to compare her life as just being, she's just an WNBA player, she's part of the LGBTQ community and all this, but then to say that she shouldn't have been brought back. Paul Whelan should have been the priority because he's a former Marine. Why does him being a former Marine trump the fact that both of them are being held in jail in a foreign country? That's where, and I listen to I listen to Fox News, I listen to all these different OAN and the Newsmax. Their biggest argument is, why would they exchange this guy, this Victor Bout, for Brittany Griner, who they feel holds no value per se, and this is just my words, per se, compared to a former Marine that's being held? And then you have to look at the fact of what they were being held for. Brittany Griner was held for a small amount of a vape pen or whatever. Okay. Paul Whelan is being held because of espionage. They said he had a disk drive that had secrets on it, or he was stealing secrets from Russia. He said somebody gave it to him. He didn't know what was on the drive. That's stuff that was on the drive. So he's being held, he shouldn't be held for that because he said he didn't know anything about it. He was there for a wedding. And that's when they, and he's been sentenced to 16 years in prison. 16. And they say it was a sham trial. But when do we start weighing in these situations overseas when people are being held in jail? When do we start weighing what the crime is compared to what we do here in the United States of America? Because it's on foreign soil? Because of what the charges are? Because of what they look like? Because what people, they feel this person adds more value than this person to the United States of America if they're here compared to there, and all these different things. I have a problem with this because at the end of the day, you have many, many Americans being held hostage overseas. Russia is the main one we're talking about right now. And then they talk about who we decided to give up in exchange for somebody's life that was being held, on some trumped up charges. I don't understand where we have to have such divisiveness when it comes to these type of things. The bottom line is this. If Paul Whelan would have been released in exchange for Victor Bout, and Brittany Griner was still in jail in Russia, how different would the conversation be? If they came out and said, if Russia came out and said, you know what? We're going to give you one. The only one you can have is Paul Whelan for Victor Bout. Nobody else. And they release Paul Whelan and he's home. How different would that conversation be Would the concentration be on the fact that Brittany Griner didn't get released? Would the concentration be on the fact that we gave up an arms dealer for Paul Whelan, only one person rather than two? How different would the conversation be if we just took that into account, that Paul Whelan was released and Brittany Griner was still there? Would the argument be that we shouldn't have gave up the arms dealer? Because this arms dealer's name has been brought up in these conversations from the beginning. And until Brittany Griner was released as one person for this person, now it's an issue. This is where my problem comes in with some of the people that are reporting on this and the way some people feel. The bottom line is this: the president and the administration has a job to do when people are being held overseas for trumped up charges, or however you want to look at it. Or if they're overseas, they've done something. The job of the administration is to bring those people home safely. What they have to give up is in negotiation. If they negotiate that this person is going to be released, that's what they do. Now, here's the thing. Paul Whelan, from what the reports say, was not even recommended or was not even mentioned by Russia to be released for Victor Bout. His name wasn't in the discussion. Specifically, Russia said, and this is what the report said, Russia refused to release Paul Whelan alongside Brittany Griner unless a former colonel from Russia's domestic spy currently in Germany custody was also released as part of any prisoner swap. So they had caveats. They weren't going to just give up one for two. They wanted this colonel, this Russian colonel that's being held in Germany. We have no jurisdiction over who Germany holds. Nothing at all. Brian Hoodie, boy, I see what you said, and I appreciate that because I had it wrote down and I forgot all about it. Brian Hoodie, Paul Whelan was disarmed and discharged, but the right won't mention that. I was getting there. I was getting there. See, this is the thing. See, we only hear about he was a former Marine. We don't talk about, and let me just say this straight now. I'm not saying because he was dishonorably discharged from the military or whatever he may have done in his past, he should be held accountable for. But let's not just give pieces of the story. Let's get a whole story. Because when I seen this, that he was dishonorably discharged, my first question is, for what? And then you have to ask the question, just like we do about, was it Michael Flynn, former general, who was dishonorably discharged or told to retire? What did he get fired for? And then to be brought back as Donald Trump's national security advisor at the time, after he had been fired before he made four-star general by President Barack Obama. See, all these things they want to leave out. They don't want to give you all that information. But so there's something that's not being said where this family is comfortable with the fact that Brittany Griner was released and their family member wasn't. All ain't clean in the water, in my opinion. That's my opinion. But at the same time, nobody should be held on charges that are not true. We see it here in the United States, and you heard me say that we got people do 20, 30, 40 years in jail for crimes they didn't commit, and we see them get released after 30, 40 years. No. It shouldn't happen. And it shouldn't happen overseas as well. But there's other people that are being held as well. Paul Whelan is one that we hear about all the time. Mark Fogel, a history teacher from Pittsburgh who taught the children of U.S. diplomats abroad, was detained in Moscow in August of 2021. He had with him a small amount of medical marijuana he used for chronic back pain. They arrested him. In June, Fogel, 61 years old, was sentenced to 14 years at a labor camp. He's still being held. Haven't heard his name. Haven't heard anybody mention his name. And then this one is the one that got me. There's a lady named Sarah Krivanik. Sarah Krivanik, 46 years old. She moved to Russia from Fresno, California, 5 years ago to teach at a Russian private school. Last year, she was involved in a domestic abuse situation with her boyfriend and allegedly grabbed a knife to defend herself. Now, I read this article, and I'm going to post it because people had the full article about this. This woman was over there in Russia. She had a boyfriend. She was teaching kids English in school. She had a boyfriend that used to beat her. He beat her a couple times, and she took it or whatever. But this time, she said, I had enough. We've seen the movies before. She said she had enough. She pulled the knife out, swung it at him, cut his nose a little bit. Somebody called the cops. He called the cops on her. She got arrested. She went to jail. At the time she was in jail, he went down and tried to get the charges dropped. Now, I'm paraphrasing all this, but I'm going to post it. He dropped the charge. He said he didn't want the charges. He wanted the charges dropped and everything, but they told her, we're going to let you go, but you're going to have to, you can't leave the country at this time. But she went to the consulate. She went to the consulate, you know, like the embassy over there. She went to them. They made arrangements to get her out of the country. Took her to the airport. While she was at the airport trying to get through customs and showing her passport and everything, they arrested her. They arrested her because she wasn't supposed to leave the country. Once they arrested her for about, and now mind you, this happened at the same time Brittney Griner was going on. That's why you didn't hear about it, but I digress. So they arrested her, put her in jail. They had a trial, which they said the charges were supposed to be dropped. They had a trial. They sentenced her to prison. They sent her out to one of these penal colonies, as we talked about with Brittney Griner. And this is where it gets gruesome. Let's just be real, because she wrote her story because she's being released over the next couple of days. She's coming back to the United States. It was a People article, and like I said, I'll post it. But in this time, while she was at this penal colony, she said the penal colony was like Sodom and Gomorrah. There was so many things going on in it. Now, she made it a point to say she's a Christian woman. She's a Christian woman. So she was going to church one day out at the penal colony, and what she did, she made a mistake and went and kissed the cross. And they didn't like that. So what they did, and what she said in her story was, while she's in this penal colony, they allowed all these different things to go on with people taking advantage of people sexually or however you want to call it. The time that she kissed the cross, they didn't appreciate it. They put her in a room with another lady that they called Darth Vader. They call this woman Darth Vader because they allow her to do whatever she wants with the other female prisoners in that prison, in this penal colony. She says she can't discuss everything that's going on with her up there until she comes back to the United States and talks to a priest. That's how faith-based she is. Now, she's saying that she's got to come back here. Once she gets back, first thing she's going to do is go see a priest, because what happened to her, she feels so guilty about that she needs to go talk to a priest. See, we don't hear these stories, but like I said, I'm going to post this story. But when you read this story about what happened to her in this penal colony, the other part that you're not hearing about is the embassy, the consulate, nobody knew she was still in the country. Nobody knew she was still in the country. She was able to reach out to a friend through somebody else's phone that was in the prison to let them know that she was being held so they could reach the consulate. So eventually the consulate could reach her. She served this time in those conditions, but we never heard about her name. Brittney Griner, Paul Whelan, the Reed that was released, all these people were held. But how many people are being held in these conditions that Sarah Krivanek was held? And we never know anything about it because somebody's not doing their job, or they're doing their job, but not to the point of what they did for Brittney Griner or Paul Whelan or anybody of that nature. I'm just putting it out there. These are things that we don't hear about. Easy E, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. These are things we hear about, but we don't read into. It's just like our justice system here. Certain people get swept under the rug, wrongly accused, put in jail for years at a time, and there's nobody that will listen. This woman was over there, and she went through, I'm going to let y'all read it. I'm not going to keep hashing on it, but I'm going to let y'all read it. But we're going to get back to the Paul Whelan thing. President Joe Biden said this was not a choice about what Americans bring home. This was a choice about trying to bring all these Americans home and having to negotiate this. It's not a one size fits all, y'all. So all these critics out here who have a problem because Brittney Griner is home, that means you have a problem not with the fact that she was released, but you have a problem with Brittney Griner, or you have a problem with Joe Biden, or you have a problem with the fact, and let's just put it out there, that a black woman was released before a white man. Let's just put it out there. Let's put it in the atmosphere because it's out there. Let's put it out there. Not only a black woman, but a gay black woman. Part of the LGBTQ community has been brought home before a former Marine, and this is the part they always want to say, a former Marine who's being held is still in jail, but they let a WNBA player who is the part of the LGBTQ community and is black, They let her come home for an arms dealer. Let's just surmise it what it is. Bottom line, nobody should be wrongfully held in any jail in any other country. We should do everything we can to get those people home, right, wrong, or indifferent. If they did the crime, they did the crime, but there should be something. Let's start here. There should be something that once they come back here, if they did the crime and we do everything to get them released because they actually did the crime and we're getting them released because of the conditions and everything like that, then when they come home, they should have to do some type of time. Whether they did it on this soil or not, if we're getting them released and we're using all our assets to bring them home, they should have to do some time here. It's just me. You feel how you feel. Because just because you did it overseas does not exempt you from being held accountable. Because you did it overseas, our job is to get you back here. And if the punishment holds, then we need to hold you accountable here rather than conditions that they have there. Case in point, Sarah Kravalik. Y'all got to get off this thing about picking and choosing who, what, when, where, and why. You know, we go from one extreme of people thinking that Herschel Walker's a godsend for the Republican Party. Then at the same time, the next week they're talking about Brittany Griner shouldn't have been released because she's just a WNBA player, but we got a Marine that's still being held who was honorably discharged. Don't know what the reason was. Might not play a factor in it, but come on. Notice you haven't heard anything about that. His family's okay with the fact of Brittany Griner being released. They feel that the President Biden did what he could do. It's not a one size fits all, as I say. We got to get out of this mindset and picking and choosing how we look at things. At the end of the day, someone was held in the prison wrongfully. One was able to come home. 3 are still there. 1 is on the way home. So the other 2 we got to work on. The one with the medical marijuana. I mean, it's about the same as Brittany Griner. They had the vape pen. But at the end of the day, what are we doing to get him released? How come we haven't heard about him? And then for the former president to get on whatever social media platform and yell out about the fact that he don't think Brittany Griner should be released. What about Paul Whelan? Paul Whelan was in jail when you was in office. 17, 18, or was it 18, 19, 20, whatever. He was in jail while you was there. You didn't get him home. But you're mad because somebody else brought somebody else home. That's what drives these conversations. Everybody wants to be the one to say, I did something, or why did this happen, or any of that kind of stuff. A life is a life. It's no different than how they felt about George Floyd. Let's just be real. Now let's get to something I talked about last week. Got a lot of phone calls. Appreciate y'all. A lot of debate. A lot of back and forth about the labels of sellout, coon, Uncle Tom, those things. How we need to be better as a people. Start taking care of ourselves. Start looking at us as human beings rather than stereotypes and calling names and different things like that. But this week, just say it like this. A brother can't go from one job to another job without criticism. A brother cannot take a chance at going to a place that pays him more money than one place without criticism. And I'm talking about Deion Sanders. Prime time, Coach Prime, decided to leave Jackson State University and take a job at University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado. Beautiful place, beautiful place. I'm not saying nothing negative about Jackson State. I'm just saying I've been to Boulder. I've never been to Jackson State. But for him to take this job and people to be in an uproar, and he sold out the HBCUs, he put God in the equation, which everybody knows Deion Sanders is a God-fearing man and always talks about God. So him bringing God up in the conversation was never something that was truly relevant because people are just digging for things now. But if I'm paying you $300,000 a year, and you come to me and tell me, hey, I got another offer. Somebody wants to pay me $5 million a year to do what I do at another level. How can you be mad at this person for taking that opportunity? Are you mad at the person who works? And I'm just going to throw this out there, and I'm not trying to be facetious when I say this, but are you mad at the person who may work at fast food or something that goes and maybe he works for, and I don't want to use no names specifically, but I'm using this as an example. Somebody that works at McDonald's and making $14 an hour or $12 an hour, $12 an hour. Let's go with $12 an hour. Making $12 an hour working at McDonald's. But they see how good he is at his job, customer service and everything. And then Burger King says, hey, I'm going to offer you $20 an hour to come over to Burger King. Do you think everybody in McDonald's going to be mad at him? Or are they going to say, man, get your money? See, we so quick to throw these labels and everything. Like I said last week, I mean, that's a small, example. But $300,000 compared to $5 million. Everybody said he sold Jackson State on a dream. And then he walked away from the dream. Deion Sanders in Jackson State is undefeated this year in football. He has a 27-5 record for the 3 years he's been there. 27-5 now. So whatever the program was before he got there has improved since he's been there. There's been the locker rooms have been redone. The field was redone. All these different things. He brought notoriety and visibility to the HBCUs per se. But my question is, and in my mind, I think, why do we always feel as a community, and I'm going to talk to us for a minute, as a community, why do we feel that we have to have one savior to take us to the next level? Bottom line, there's many other African-American football coaches out there that are at HBCUs that they haven't put the pressure on to do what Deion Sanders has done, that I know of. And there's a lot of criticism about Deion Sanders because he went to the HBCUs and now he's going to a Power 5, which they call a white university. But y'all remember, at HBCU, he had black athletes. And at Colorado, he's going to have black athletes, young black men that he can make an impact on, whether he's in Jackson State or whether he's in Colorado. Some of us have been watching from afar. I watch his channel and see what's going on and see the speeches he makes and the nuggets he drops and things like that. And I always say to myself, I wish I would have had a role model like that when I was coming up, not only for the sport of it, but for life. And I'm not saying I didn't have role models, but I'm just saying at this time in my life, looking at the things he says to these young men, think of the impact he has. If he has an impact on me as an older gentleman, what do you think he's doing for these young kids? Some coming from fatherless homes that never had that role model to step in and get them right, tell them what they need to do, give them the path they need to go on. But what people think is because he's leaving there, that all that he's done there, he won't take to the next level with it. I don't understand that. And then to start calling him a sellout because he decided to take everybody that's listening to me today at some time or another had to make a decision from one job to another because of a pay raise or a different opportunity or progression, from one level to the next. And I'll go out on a limb and say anyone who did not make that change and go to the next level, whatever, it wasn't a good fit. He sees this as a good fit. The critics, they're going to criticize him no matter what. Some that like him, some that don't. But when I see my people just jump on this bandwagon and call him sellout and stuff, it goes back to the conversation we had last week. And I just don't get it. We went from Herschel Walker to Deion Sanders. The only similarity they have is they're black men and they were former NFL athletes. That's it. But we're tearing both of them down in the same manner. One because he was running for politics that he shouldn't have been part of, and the other one because he's making a move to the next level, which no other HBCU football coach has ever gone from an HBCU to a Power 5 conference. And rather than looking at it as a positive, we're holding it over his head as a negative because he sold a dream back here, but he's leaving and going somewhere else. Happens all the time. You never hear this outrage when a white coach leaves a university and goes to another university because of money. You never hear that conversation. In the NFL, they keep recycling these coaches from one team to another team, and then you guys who watch football still continue to support that team, even though they had a Rooney Act, and you know that the Rooney Act is just a cover to show, yeah, we interviewed him, but we had no intentions of hiring him. But when you got somebody like Deion Sanders who went back, tried to do everything he could and did everything he could at Jackson State, and decides he has a better opportunity to go somewhere and make a bigger impact on a bigger stage, now we in an uproar. And there's people, let me just say this too. Some of y'all gonna get mad. I don't care. That's where I'm at right now. I don't care. I care, but I don't care. How many of y'all went to an HBCU? Anybody out there that's got a college degree? How many of y'all went to an HBCU? How many of y'all even considered an HBCU when you were going to college? How many of y'all considered the HBCU when you were going to college? I'll give you an example. When I decided to go back and get my degree, I was still working. It ain't been that long ago, so y'all don't judge me. But I went back and got my degree. And there was a lot of people who said, where you going? I said, I'm going to go to University of Phoenix because I can go to school and go to work, do the same thing. I don't know if you should do that, bro. Like, why? A lot of people don't look at that University of Phoenix degree as a degree. Really? Why not? It's a certified institution. It's certified, right? Yeah, but you know, when they see that University of Phoenix compared to something like University of Colorado or University of New Hampshire and UNLV, and people get a little hesitant about hiring. So wait a minute now. So we picking and choosing which college degrees holds more water, and they always have. You got a university called Carnegie Mellon up there in Pennsylvania. It costs $100,000 a year to go to it. If you go there, they say, oh, you get the top job when you come out of there. Well, how much are you going to be in debt when you come out? My point is that sometimes we get down into the point of looking at things in the negative rather than look at the things of how it's going to come out in the long run. Me going back to get my college degree was something I did for myself. Had nothing to do with money, had nothing to do with all that. I just never went when I was in school. I didn't want to be in school. When I graduated and went in the military, I never took college courses because I just wasn't into it. But when I got the opportunity after I retired and the 9/11 GI Bill came out and they said, hey, you know, you can go to school for free. Hey, let me go to school now. I'm more prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for it at the time back then, but I was prepared for it at the time when it came up and it showed itself again. What I'm trying to tell you is everything is not right for everybody at the same time. If Deion Sanders would have been offered a Power 5 school when he first decided he wanted to coach at that level, do you think he would have took it? Or do you think he would have said, no, you know what, I'm going to go to an HBCU? The HBCU gave him the opportunity to take this type of job, building blocks. He showed what he could do at the HBCU. Colorado, and there were some other schools, looked at it and said, you know what? That may be who we need. And people need to understand this as well. Deion Sanders is not going to a school that has a winning record. They haven't had a good season in about 15 to 20 years. This last season, they were 1-11. 1-11. If he wins 2 games, he's done better than the last person. And from what I read, the last coach was an African-American man. He's just taking over the program. We get so caught up in the fact of who, what, when, where, and why that we don't look at the big picture. But the first thing we want to do is, he's a sellout. He's a sellout. Take that out y'all's vocabulary, man. Everything does not resort to somebody being a sellout. This is the last day I'm gonna talk about this too. This is just the last. I don't care what stories come out. I don't know what's in the. I don't care what's in. I'm not talking about this no more after the going into 2023. I'm not talking about this no more. Y'all do what y'all gonna do. but I'm just tired of hearing it. Now, hopefully, it'll spark somebody to say, I'm going to take this out of my vocabulary. The sellout, the N word, the Uncle Tom, the coon, all that stuff, eliminate it. Going into 2023, let's eliminate that from the vocabulary. Just stop. Just stop. You can't approach somebody one day and say, my brother. Then the next day, call somebody that looks exactly like that one you called your brother, say he's a sellout. It don't pass the common sense test. You don't have to like them, but you don't have to label them either. Deion Sanders said that God led him to Jackson State to uplift HBCUs. With all of his efforts, fans and HBCU advocates are upset that he is leaving the university after three seasons for a $5 million annual payday from Colorado. He sold a dream and then walked down on the dream. People have the right to be critical of that. And this was a quote from Bomani Jones from ESPN. Have you ever noticed people on ESPN have no problem of tearing down African-American men in sports? Have you ever noticed that? Maybe it's just me, but I continue. Sports fans shared similar sentiments on social media, with one person tweeting, Deion was preaching elevating HBCU programs and looks like he was just using JSU as a launching pad for his coaching career, which is fine. But don't go around acting like it was for altruistic reasons. Another said, this guy literally made himself the face of HBCU sports, acted as its leading ambassador, shamed those who didn't want to include him, be they question his motives, only for him to flip so soon. The debate about Sanders leaving Jackson State has centered on whether he should be considered a sellout for having left an HBCU football program that he made successful for a struggling program at a better funded, predominantly white institute. Experts say the answer isn't so simple. Sanders, as I mentioned, has a 27-5 coaching record, including the 12-0 season this year. I'm sorry, I thought it was 11-0, 12-0. And 2 consecutive Southwestern Athletic Conference titles. Colorado Buffaloes haven't had a winning season since 2006 and haven't won a bowl game since 2004. Sanders will owe Jackson State around $300,000 in a buyout for the 2020 contract, according to USA Today. And Colorado reportedly offered Sanders a starting salary of more than $5 million a year, plus incentives. And we mad? And I messed up on his salary. He owes them $300,000. I can't remember what his salary was, but it wasn't nowhere close to $5 million. Let's just be real. If he only got to pay them $300,000 as a buyout, that means he would probably want to get paid $300,000 next year. I don't know. I didn't look at the numbers. Numbers don't matter to me. But at the same time, who made Deion Sanders the savior for all HBCU sports? And don't tell me it was him. Don't tell me it was him. Who put the label? See, we do this so often, or we allow the media to do this so often, that when somebody speaks out against something, he is the next leader of the African-American community. So with all the coaches that are in the HBCUs and have been there before Deion Sanders got there, when did he become the leader of the HBCUs? Now, I know him and Eddie Robinson Jr. got into an argument because, he said he wasn't swag, which is probably one of the reasons he left, because there's so much hatred going on and haterade or whatever you want to call it. But you don't hear anybody talking about Eddie George up in Tennessee State, another former NFL player. You don't hear him talking about Eddie George at Tennessee State. You don't hear them talking about how he turned the program around, or how the program is doing, or how much money he's making, or how people are treating him. And you don't hear none of that about Eddie George up there. You don't hear anybody putting the label that Eddie George is the savior for all HBCUs. You don't hear that. But you hear about Deion Sanders. Now, a lot of people don't like Deion Sanders because his braggadociousness, if that's a word, his braggadociousness. But at the same time, you don't have to accept everybody for who they are. Just watch the actions. He went down there and he won. Now he's going somewhere else and try to do the same thing. Y'all. And let me say this. when I bring these things up, don't think that I'm trying to act like I'm holier than thou. I have my faults. I've had my reasons why I've said things about people and everything like that in my past. Don't get it twisted. But at the same time, growth, evolution, all that start changing. Prime timeness. Exactly, exactly. You know, you can't help but watch. You can't help but watch. Because the thing is, if you don't watch, he's going to drop a gem that you didn't even know about or something that resonates with you. And the bottom line is, I probably shouldn't say we all, but most of us have had a time where we wished that we had the charisma or anything that a Deion Sanders has when he goes out here and he starts talking and he just at the end of something he said, "Oh, y'all, I hope y'all caught that. Y'all need to write that down. God, thank you for giving me that one." See, we tend to overlook the fact that this is who we are as a people. There's always some of y'all got an uncle just like Primetime. Let's just be real. Some of y'all have an uncle just like him. And if you don't know who that uncle is, it might be you. It might be you. Let's be real. Let's be real, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Let's move on. Trevor Noah this week ended his show, The Daily Show. And he did something at the end that resonated with me. He talked about Black women. I'm going to play this clip real quick about Trevor Noah and what he said this week about Black women at the end of his show, for his last show. Here we go.
Most importantly, I'm grateful to you. Every single one of you. I'm so grateful. I remember when we started the show, we couldn't get enough people to fill an audience. And I always think it's good. That's how comedy is, funny enough. I remember all my shows, there weren't tickets, everyone, there were empty seats. And then I look at this now, I don't take it for granted ever. Every seat that has ever been filled to watch something that I'm doing, I always appreciate because I know the empty seat that sits behind it. So thank you. Thank you to the people who watch, the people who share the clips, everyone who's had an opinion, everyone who's been kind enough and gracious enough to, even if it's a critique, doesn't even have to be praised, but some people who watch, I don't like it when you do this, but I watch. I want to say I appreciate those people. Even the people who hate watched, we still got the ratings, thank you. I'm eternally grateful to you. And this is random for some, but special shout out to Black women. I've often been credited with, having these grand ideas of people like, "Oh, Trevor, you're so smart and and then I'm like, who do you think teaches me? Who do you think has shaped me, nourished me, informed me? From my mom, my my aunt, all these Black women in my life, but then in America as well. I always tell people, if you truly want to learn about America, talk to Black women. Yeah, because unlike everybody else, Black women cannot afford to around and find out. Black people understand how hard it is when things go bad, especially in America, but any place where Black people exist, whether it's Brazil, whether it's South Africa, wherever it is, when things go bad, Black people know that it gets worse for them. But Black women in particular, they know what shit is, genuinely. People always be shocked. They'll be like, why do Black women turn out the way they do in America? Why do they vote the way yeah, because they know what happens if things do not go the way it should. They cannot afford to around and find out. And to Black women who have taught me, all of them, the scholars online, the authors, everybody, the Roxane Gays, the Tressie McMillan Cottons, I'll remember the names, the Zoe Tamudzis, brilliant, brilliant women. Have taken the time to inform me, to educate me, to argue with me. The Tarana Burks who, laughed with me, talking about everything from sexual assault to just what life is like. Yeah, man, I'll tell you now, do yourself a favor. You truly want to know what to do or how to do it, or maybe the best way or the most equitable way, talk to black women. They're a lot of the reason that I'm here, and so I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to every single one of you. This has been an honor. Thank you.
Enough said. The reason I played that clip and the reason it resonated with me is because we don't hear that enough. We don't say it enough. Black women in America, Black women in this world, and I've said it many times, are most educated, the most undervalued, the most disrespected of women, of any race of women. And we got to get to a point where we start resonating that message that Trevor Noah just said more often. You heard me talk about when we hear people with the B, that calling the B's and the H's and the, all these different derogatory terms, or we justify them by their looks or having a big butt, and all these different things you can think about. But as he mentioned in there, if you want to know what's really going on and how it's going to affect us, talk to a Black woman. Talk to a Black woman. Because what we know is, being that they've always had to fight for every little thing, never given the benefit, they always had to fight, not only amongst other races, but even amongst us as men, as Black men in this country. We got to do better. We got to do better to uplift them rather than tear them down. And it's vice versa as well. They need to do the same for us, because what we know to be true, the struggle, it may have slowed down, but it ain't stopped. It may have changed the direction of things, but it hasn't stopped. To all the Black women in my life, all the Black women I've ever come encounter with, crossed in paths, I appreciate you. Because one way or another, you've impacted me. And I'll go back to my all my aunts, all 8 of them, my mother, both my grandmothers, my sister, my cousins, my wives. I say that's plural. Call it what you want. They have all impacted me in a way as Black women that I carry through each and every day. Because there's something they've said to me, something they've called me, somehow they've corrected me, or some way they've let me know that I'm worthy. And I appreciate that. And I think we all should take the time to understand and recognize the impact that Black women have on us consistently and daily in our lives. Just want to put that out there. Let's go ahead and do this mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. The year 2022, we're coming to the end, y'all. We in December. We got about what? 3 weeks? 3 weeks to the end of the year. It went by. 1,440 minutes in a 24-hour day. 1,440 moments. That's what we've been doing for this year. That's what we've been enjoying each and every moment for what it has to offer throughout our lives. Today's mind, body, and soul is a quote that I found. I tell you. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you, my brother. Mind, body, and soul. As long as you are breathing, it's never too late to start a new beginning. As long as you are breathing, it's never too late to start a new beginning. I bring this up because we're coming to the end of the year. And it just doesn't resonate about being at the end of the year with this quote. You know, there's times where we go through our valleys. We go up and down. You know, job ain't right. Life ain't feeling right. Things going on. And you step back and you ask yourself, what do I need to change? What do I need to change? Why am I feeling this way? What's going on with me? And sometimes we can't put a finger on those things because there's so many things that we can take into account of what's affecting us that we can't just pinpoint it to one thing. But I would tell you, each and every day you wake up, you get a new start. You get a new start. You get a new 24 hours. We hear it all the time. And as I mentioned to OT on my anniversary show, he asked me, where do I find peace, being all the labels we may carry? And I told him that I find peace each day I wake up. And I find peace each day that I wake up because I know that God has blessed me with another day to get it right. You get that same opportunity. As long as you're breathing and you wake up in the morning, it's never too late to start a new beginning. And a new beginning doesn't mean you got to eliminate everything from your life or stuff. A new beginning could be that day to start looking at life a little differently than you did yesterday. To start heading into life and heading into the day differently than you did. You know, you wake up groggy in the morning. You don't really want to go to work. And then when you get to work, it's not a good day and all the things go on. And by the end of the day, you've carried all that negativity throughout your whole day. By the time you go to sleep, you would think that you can forget about it. But at times you wake up the next morning and that last day is going to affect this next day. Change that mindset. When you lay down to sleep at night, when you say your prayers before you go to sleep, you kneel at that bed, let it all go. Because the next day is a new beginning. Each day you wake up is a new beginning. It's a new start, a new vision, a new way to go about doing things the way you think you need to do them and asking God to guide your steps in that path. We get so caught up in what went wrong yesterday that we don't look at the blessing of today. Take the time, and while you're breathing, while you're here on this earth, take advantage of each day you wake up. You know, I always say this, and a lot of people look at me crazy. I say, I got more years behind me than I got in front of me. Once you hit 50 years old, you got more years behind you than you got in front of you. We don't know the day or the hour, but each day you wake up is a new beginning. Treat it as such. Stop holding on to those grudges. Stop carrying what you had an argument about yesterday into the next day. Stop taking the fact that you don't like that job or what happened at the job yesterday into the next day. Every day is an opportunity to change your mindset. Each day you wake up is a new beginning to get to the next step of where you're trying to get to. Your current situation should never be your final destination. Your current situation should never be your final destination. Start over. It's a new beginning. Everything from yesterday is washed away. Move on. Let it go. Continue to press on. That's the mind, body, and soul for the day. I appreciate everybody coming in. Let me say what this quote is one more time so everybody can get a grasp of this. As long as you are breathing, it's never too late to start a new beginning. Carry that into tomorrow. Carry that into the day. Carry that into the new year. Because let me tell you something. Tomorrow's not promised. Today wasn't promised. 24 hours, when you really think about it, is a long time. It's a long time for some things to go wrong. But appreciate the fact that you woke up this morning and you're breathing and you had a new beginning. Somebody didn't get that today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Look, we're getting at the end of the year. We got Christmas coming up, y'all. Christmas. And my plan for and I don't know which day I'm gonna shut down because I'm thinking about shutting down for the holidays, but I'll let y'all know ahead of time. But I'm gonna have OT on. We're gonna do a wrap up, yearly wrap. I'm gonna try to do this every year, and I want everybody to chime in on this when we start doing. But we're gonna do one show where we do a wrap up for the year. Everything that's going on in this year, and I'm gonna go through the archives and look at some things and talk about some things and see where we were in January and where we are in December. What we've changed, what needs to change, how we haven't changed, and things we need to look forward to going into the new year, a new beginning. Don't wait until New Year's to make a new beginning. Wake up tomorrow and know that today and the next day are new beginnings. Just putting it out there. So make sure you tune in. I'll keep y'all posted, but I appreciate y'all, man. It's been a good year. We're doing our thing. the election, people got out there, they voted, they did what they needed to do to make sure that they had their best interests at hand. Whether you voted for Walker or Warnock, it's been decided. Let it go. Leave it alone. 6 years. That's what you got Warnock for now. Deion Sanders, it is what it is. This man took an opportunity to make more money and to impact other people outside of where he was at before. Don't hold it against him. Uplift him. Keep pressing him forward. Let that man do what he does. Because if it was you, you'd expect the same grace from other folks. Just putting it out there. Brittney Griner, glad that she's home. Glad that she's home. Now she can start healing from what she's been through, her and her family over the holidays. Paul Whelan's family, still keeping you in our prayers. Hopefully, and I say hopefully, we can get him released and get him back home. For all those being held overseas, we should all be praying that they get sent home, because what we need to understand is this. They're in Russia, but you can go to any of these foreign countries. Any of these, we go on cruises. We go on trips to different places like Jamaica and Turks and Caicos, or wherever you may go. Depending on the intentions of those people in those foreign countries, you could be a prisoner in that country. Never take for granted, while you're on vacation, that these things can't happen to you if they want them to happen to you. And you should also think about the fact that if you were in that situation, would somebody be working hard to get you back home? Before we pass judgment on these people, or what they may have done, what they couldn't have done, what they shouldn't have done, or whatever, make sure you got all your stuff in order as well. Because as Joe Biden said at the end of his press conference the other day, people need to start paying attention to what the State Department puts out as warnings about travel to certain locations and what the risks are. Pay attention to that. And I say that, and I don't just say that because of Brittney Griner or anything. There's a lot of people that go all willy-nilly and they forget about it. They think they're in the United States. Every country is not receptive to Americans. Let's just be real. Every country is not receptive to Americans. But you need to be aware that anything can happen when you go overseas, just like anything can happen here in the United States. Just putting it out there. Appreciate y'all tuning in. As I always say before I sign off, I'll see y'all next week, first of all. But love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. I'll see y'all next week. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And make sure y'all send them Christmas gifts. I'm waiting on them. And I'm out. Holla at me. Peace.